So now that you've gone and grabbed the mobile test.html, I just have this open. It's behind me here. You can see the standard display that we have right behind us is the desktop display. So this one that you see here is well wider than 1080 pixels. This is a 4K monitor. There's plenty of space right there. So that is the desktop display. And if you check over on probably this way, the left-hand side, you'll see what we're able to do with the media query. So the media query is this line number here, 16, and this line number here, 10 and 17. At media only, screen and max with 64 EM. So that 64 comes out of 100. And what we're saying is that at the maximum width of roughly 2/3 of a full display size, display the following things. The media query at 37 EM suggests that, hey, at roughly 1/3 of what would be a normal browser size. So you'll notice 2/3 for tablets, 3/3 for desktop, 1/3 for smartphone. So those are our queries. The default is still going to be your desktop media query. So that is actually implied. So here in the head section, I don't have to have a media query for my desktop selection. It's implied that all the stuff that goes up here, all the stuff that is not between my tablet media query, and all the stuff that is not in between my smartphone media query is going to be related to the desktop. One thing before we get into all the changes that are going to happen here as a result of the code that we put in, I do want to warn you when you are doing the material here in the textbook for either the hands-on practice and especially when you're doing it for the case studies at the end of the chapter, make sure that you are putting the material that goes with the individual media queries inside of that media query. So the thing that I see most often that impacts negatively a student is going to be if we have a selector. So for whatever if for whatever reason you've got some style that you're supposed to add over here to section, don't put that orphaned of the rest of the material that you have for desktop. So if the changes that you're supposed to do to section are supposed to belong to the desktop media query, that should go up here with the rest of your desktop media query. Otherwise, what happens is as your viewport grows and shrinks, that section change that you made is going to be ignored, and that's not necessarily what we want to have. What is happening with this particular piece of code? So in my standard desktop, you'll see that I have a class description here for box. So box 1, and that is this box right here. I can tell that that's that box right here because I have a background color of aqua. I have a width of 50% of my page. I have a height of 400 pixels and margins auto. So that means it's in the center, which by the way, there's still a couple of you who are struggling with for wrapper when it comes to either one of your two case studies. So margin auto really takes care of that margin right, margin left that sometimes you leave uncoded. So that is what we see back here. So that you can tell is my desktop media query. I've got this skinny little section here for my background box, or my box rather, class. And you can see that's right here on line number 32. I just have the display of box 1 in my inside of the HTML outside of my style section. So this at media only screen and max width 64 EM is my tablet media query. So I'm saying that so what I do is I put my box one, so I've got my selector here for box one. Now what I need to do is change its properties and values, potentially change anyway, its properties and values, so that we can see that there's a change here. So when displaying the tablet media query, the background should be dark red, and the width will get to be wider for that media query. So my box will actually take up more of the space in my tablet media query than the box takes up of the space in the full desktop media query. So as I grab the correct window, and shrink it a little bit, boom, we can see that change is happening right here in between these pixels. So what the browser is saying is here, where I'm at right this moment, it is still the size of a desktop browser. But here, it's the size of a tablet browser. So now box one's rules change based on this media query. So what happens is the browser goes to check the style section or the CSS, and now it sees that there are rules for the tablet display. So these rules in the tablet display for the media query, the 64EM, remember roughly 2/3 media query, suggest that these following changes supersede what we had for box one previously. So now the width of that container, box one, is wider, and the dark red background displays as opposed to the aqua background there. If I keep going smaller, there we go. I was curious if it was going to let me get small enough there. You'll see that I do have the black background here, and it's taking up 100% of the width of my page. And you can see OBS running in the background there. So this is what a media query gives you. It gives us the ability to totally obscure the fact that there are other descriptions happening for other sizes of devices. For here, we have the background color that I want. Here, we have the background, the width of a container that I want. And we can overwrite those rules as we go down through our through our style section in this case, otherwise through our CSS in other cases. So the next thing we'll do, we'll change this code just a little bit, and we'll see what we can do with static content that is in our, the body of our web page, and what we can do with stylizing that content.